Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to iCommand. I have been on a little bit of a vacation. I appreciate y'all being patient and waiting. I need to take a little break, plus we've got a lot going on with IACP in the new season, with playtesting going on, but I wanted to make a video before we do the first update. So version 10.1 is going to be coming out on the 29th. Recording this on the 24th, so you're probably going to be seeing it on Thursday the 25th, but wanted to kind of do a mid-season, mid-playtest update on the season and the cards. Just kind of let people know what's going on, what's been happening in the playtest games. I've just gone through most of the playtest games for Season 10 that are in our Dropbox that people have submitted. And it's been very interesting, and also the feedback has been coming in, a lot of it. I really appreciate all the folks who are playtesting the new cards, giving us their feedback and telling us what they're seeing. It's very, very helpful. I mean, we can go through the game logs, but what people are feeling is going to give us a lot more data, actionable data for sure. And I think, kind of on the whole, what we're seeing for Season 10, things are working pretty well. A lot of things are just a bit overtuned, I think is how I would put it. A few things overtuned. A few things are actually pretty much on the mark where we want them. And then one or two things not quite working as strong as we'd like, or maybe as interesting as we'd like them to be. So I'm just going to kind of run through the cards here one by one and talk about them, and we'll kind of give you guys an update on where they are before we put out the 10.1 versions, where we kind of tweak things a little bit. And I think we'll start with the big one here, the one that has probably generated the most discussion amongst our players and community, which is the new updated Moff Gideon. Now this guy is six. Well, I'm not even going to read this off. You guys can watch my preview videos. But generally, what we're seeing with Moff Gideon, this is one of those cards that is a little overtuned. I think from what we've been hearing from people, from what I've seen, watching him getting played more and more, is that everything's just a little overbalanced than where we want it. But the general design is actually working pretty well, and actually I'm quite happy with it. I know some players are not the hugest fans of Moff Gideon, especially his I know everything ability that lets him force a player to box one of their own cards from their deck, that they get to choose, though, from two choices that the opponent makes. But I've actually been pretty happy with how that's going so far. I actually went into each game log and noted down which cards got taken by I Know Everything. I think we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like 11 examples from our game logs. And it's been very interesting, and I think it shows it's not always the same. Like the same choices will be offered to different players, and those players will take different things. I've actually got, maybe I'll throw some images of what we've got, but like, for example, we had one player who boxed their Call the Vanguard. I'm not sure what their choice was, but I'm guessing it was either over Parting Blow or maybe Take Initiative. We had another player who boxed Call the Vanguard as well. Actually, 3 times Call the Vanguard was sent to the game box by their owner. In one case, it was done over Close the Gap, which is the new Brawler card. So Call the Vanguard often getting chosen and getting sent to the game box. Now, I will say that most of our Gideon data, or the game logs I've looked at, have been one player using Gideon a lot, I guess trying to prove a point. Also, I don't have actual win-loss data yet. I've been very busy, and I've just finally had some time to open up the logs and actually watch them, which is a lot different from recording just the results, because I want to see how the cards are actually playing. So that's important. But yeah, so honestly, I'm pretty happy with how I Know Everything's playing. I think it is a ability that can feel very... I don't know what's a good word to use here, like kind of violating almost, right? Like he's looking into your deck, or the player gets to look at your whole deck and then chooses 2 cards and then forces a Sophie's Choice against you, where you have to pick between probably 2 of your favorite cards in your deck, and you have to lose one forever, or for the rest of the game anyway. It's probably not a great feeling to play against, but that is, I mean, Gideon's a villain. Like, that's what he does. He does these terrible things through all this extra planning he does ahead of time before you even encounter him. He already knows who your friends are, where you've been through. Like, that whole scene from the finale of season 1 is him being like, Din Djarin, I know where you live, I know who you love. Cara Dune, I know what you did when you were in the army. You know, Grief Karga, I know everything about you. Like, and I've manipulated everything to work in my favor. So, kind of like supposed to be what that character is about. But I feel like the fact that you get to choose the one to keep, like, I've seen Son of Skywalker be chosen a lot. We had one player who had to choose between Son of Skywalker and Vanish, and so Vanish went to the game box. Broke my heart as a Davith lover, but you know, you got to keep Son of Skywalker. I think where the problems have been coming up is with Thrawn. Now that makes sense, right? Because Thrawn has a very similar ability, but instead of being able to choose, he randomly discards a card from the deck, but he does it every round. So he's discarding often a lot, and with his command card, he can get even more cards with Foresee. So when you combine these two together, of course, they're going to work very well at depleting the opponent's resources, specifically depleting their potential options. They don't actually take options away as far as the cards in your hand, but they do dilute the power of your deck by removing key cards early in the game that you can then no longer draw. So these guys have been put together and doing a lot of work against players' command decks. Now I think we're going to talk about some other things that are contributing to a feeling of not being able to play command cards, but I don't actually think Gideon is contributing as much as people seem to think he is. But we'll talk about some of the reasons I think that is happening. Now as far as, and I realize I'm going to talk forever if I keep talking like this, his other thing, that you have something I want, I think that's been working really well too, but I think that one is overtuned. I think I've seen him be able to, how far 6 spaces looks like now on a variety of maps, now that we've seen playtesting games. It's pretty far. It means that he can pretty much double move, hit somebody with it, and then move back to safety very easily. So I think the distance is a little far, and then I think the damage is a little high for having to make that choice, because something that we didn't really factor into, or I didn't think about, was when Gideon steals a focus token from someone, you know, if they give it up, if they don't take the damage, not only is he making his own attack more powerful, he's weakening the opponent's offenses and therefore increasing his own force's defense. And so when he combines with things like Vader, we've seen him being used to combine with Vader, you know, it's kind of like having a second doubt, or just dealing a bunch of extra damage to something without spending an action. So didn't really quantify until we saw a lot more games with him just how much he hurts the opponent's offense and improves the defense of his own side. So I think that one's probably going to get changed. And then just his general attack and defense, like, we buffed him quite a bit for the fact that he became melee. He used to be a ranged attacker, but you know, we were looking at the show again and be like, he never uses a gun unless he's like found one and he's pinned on the ground. He always initiates fights with either his Darksaber or some kind of melee weapon. So that's why he's melee, but we buffed his stats to account for that, because, you know, melee is at a disadvantage against ranged. But with You Have Something I Want, doing so much extra damage and or reducing the opponent's figure's offensive capabilities, he really didn't need that much extra stats. So I think that's something that's going to probably be changing too. But otherwise, I think he's definitely much more playable than his original version, and I think he's going to slot into a lot of control lists that are going to try and control the opponent. Works really well with Doubt, as I don't know if I mentioned that, but yeah, because of his ability to pressure the opponent's focus tokens, Doubt also does that, so he synergizes quite well. Talked about Vader and Thrawn. So yeah, that's Moff Gideon. Let's move on to the next one, which let's talk about... I guess since we're talking about Moff Gideon, I do want to talk about this card, Capitalize. This card, we kind of at the last minute, we were trying to do something with this idea of get X for where X is the number of harmful conditions you have on your opponent's figures. And at the last minute, we pivoted to have it be this Calm Disruption ability. Kind of leaning into what the season's doing. And I think it would be fine, except the only problem is that we were hoping it would not overlap with Comms Disruption, but turns out it does because of Scout Troopers being spies that also are very good at dishing out condition tokens. So that, and then we've seen players combining it with another card in the season, Dengar, with Temporary Alliance, and it turns out it is very easy to combine this card, Capitalize, with Calm Disruption, and that's a little too much pressure on command cards. If you can negate two 2-point or even 3-point command cards from your opponent, plus if you're doing all this stuff like Gideon and Thrawn to dilute the strength, the concentration of power in their command decks, that's a little too much. You can't counter, especially since you can't counter these cards with something like Smuggling Compartment. There's currently no way to counter Calm Disruption and now Capitalize. So we're probably going to see this card getting moved to a different ability for the update. But yeah, I wanted to mention Capitalize. Next, let's talk about, since we're on Capitalize, let's talk about Dengar, since I mentioned him. Dengar deals out a whole bunch of conditions now, but he goes for quantity over quality. So for each uncancelled surge, he gets to deal out a condition of the opponent's choice, but he gets to do it at range 2 of the defender. So yeah, he's been pretty good. I think the issue with Dengar is that he can do it. He can perform multiple attacks, and then he gets to spit out a bunch of tokens for each extra attack he's able to perform in a round. Now that works really well with his command card, which is Payback, which gives him basically return fire, and adds those extra 2 surges. So really amps up the amount of tokens, conditions he spits out when he does that. Plus he can get extra attacks very easily from Jabba, who gives him the Order Hits, who can use Order Hit to give him another attack, which will give him another chance to spit out a bunch of condition tokens. Generally, it seems like he's doing fine. He's totally fine when he's only triggering what is it called? Punishment once. But when he's able to trigger it multiple times in a round, then that's where it becomes a problem. So we're probably going to be making a change to it to match that. So that's Dengar. Wing Guards are the other one in Mercenaries. I've only seen a couple games with these guys, but they seem totally fine. They seem to generate their value. I didn't see them used with Lando. I did not see this Bespin security with Lando, but the reroll they give to each friendly mercenary trooper, really good with Migs Mayfeld, really good with things like Hondo, and then Keep the Peace just gives them a little bit of extra ping damage put out there, can sometimes help with finishing off a figure, making it easier to kill something because it's taken a damage or because they've lost something, and we often see them being used with under duress to make sure that the strain they're dealing out is being applied to the opponent's health and making them a little bit softer for other figures to finish the job. So that's the Wing Guards. They are doing good. Let's talk about Paz next. Paz Vizsla, another one from the Mandalorian show. He is really strong. The thing that is going on with Paz, though, is the accuracy is a little too much. Seems to be a little too much. And what's happening is that +2 accuracy is combining with focus, which then gives another 2 minimum accuracy. And then what people are doing is they're combining him with Bodhi from season 9 and Kotun from season 6 to give him some damage power tokens, and then give him that extra +2 accuracy boost on top of being focused. I had a game against somebody where it was on the Triple Cross Gangsters mission, of course, on back alleys, and they used Kotun to give him a token during deployment. And then before I could do anything, I was going to try and go for the middle gangster. Before I could even think of doing anything, Paz activated immediately and one-shotted that gangster like no problem from range 5 with the damage power token. No focus or anything, just did 8 damage minus 2 blocks, 6 damage to that gangster, no problem. So right now, his damage is really good, but I think his accuracy is something that we are looking at right now. As well as how he interacts with Bodhi and what we can do about that. So Paz very strong. The other combo, in addition to comboing with Kotun, is to play Wild Attack. And something that we've seen with Paz is he just, as long as he has Kotun there to give him dead precise and ignore dodges, he just steps on white dice like crazy, because he doesn't have any surge abilities that he relies on to deal extra damage. Everything is on the dice. So with a reroll from dead precise and the -1 dodge, even if they're rolling 2 white dice, like if the white dice are just rolling surge cancels, it doesn't really do anything to Paz's damage output. So that's something we're looking at with Paz. And then the other thing with Paz is his command card. Definitely a little bit overtuned. Giving him that extra free attack for just 1 point. Now he does have to suffer 4 strain, and he loses access to making range attacks for the rest of the game. But the 4 strain, because his ability is so good at preventing strain, is not much of an issue. Also the fact that, you're taking that after the fact, so you can have a fresh Paz on turn 1, roll up on you, and use this card with no restrictions, and just do a huge extra attack with that red green. So we've definitely gotten a lot of feedback on overheated, and we're definitely making some changes to this to make it a little more balanced. We're going to try and keep it at 1 point. That's kind of one of the goals, is seeing if we can have drawbacks on this and keep the flavor of losing access to a ranged attack because your gun basically explodes because you're using it too much, but we're trying to rebalance it around having a bit more of a cost to use it initially. Got a lot of changes. Let's move over to Rebels for a little bit. Tress has been excellent. I've played with her and I've seen her played. Where are my notes on Tress? Here we go. Her command card is fantastic, as some of us already knew, giving you that extra cleave 3 that you can split up against 2 figures, plus cleave X for her surge ability. The 2 main things that have really improved Tress is the leg hydraulics, so now it's much easier to set up cleave without having reach. Normally reach is really good with cleave, but we wanted to go a different way, so being able to, after you attack, spend your surge for cleave X, play spinning kick, and then move 1 space to be able to hit whatever that other thing is you couldn't quite reach before, has been really, really good. It makes it really fun to try and set up these plays where you're attacking one thing and then using hydraulics to move over and hit another thing with that cleave ability. Plus the surges, now that she has surges for +1 on her, +1 damage on her 2 surge for stun, surge for weaken, means that re-rolling to try and get surges doesn't feel as bad as it used to. And because now you're actually going to do damage with those surges. You're not going to do a ton, you're not going to do +2 damage with a surge, but for each surge you do roll, you're generally going to get an extra damage, because then you're also going to be spending that surge, 3rd surge for cleave X. And her search for cover X has also come up in a game I played because she's a little tougher than she used to be now that she can re-roll opponents' attack dice when she's defending, and that extra health. She now has 10 health. I guess she could always use Phrynox style on defense. And really good with tough luck because of that. When she's defending against an attack, you can basically cancel out one of their attack die if you have tough luck in hand, so that is great with her. And I think we'll move on to talk about another card in Rebels, which is Nemik's Manifesto. This card has been really good, as we predicted. I remember when we were doing the pre-play testing, we had it a little stronger, and we nerfed it because it was like, yeah, that's gonna be strong. But yeah, 2 strain for 1 movement point turns out is really good, and it's actually really good for melee figures in particular, and things that like need to get in close to attack. Has been really helpful. I've been using it, having that extra movement point when you need it during a game, like just to get just close enough with and use your other, like, you don't. I still play movement point cards with it, and it still is just good at getting you just close enough where you can actually attack when you need to. But that 2 strain is a major cost. Like, even if you stuff your command deck with cards, there's still milled at random if you take them as cards. So I've lost 3 2-point cards to this discarding, or you're taking like 2 damage is a good chunk of damage on a figure that's going to make it die to maybe 1 less attack than it would have normally. But really liking Nemik's Manifesto. Also just kind of nice that when you can't decide what card to cut when you're trying to build your command deck, you can just be like, well, I'll just put it in and we'll just go run it. I've run 16, 17 card decks with this just because I couldn't decide what I wanted to cut. And it's been fun. It's a fun card. Next, let's talk about Tauntaun Riders. These guys have been really cool to see. They've actually done a lot of work. They play kind of similarly to Dewbacks, but they're less reliant on their attack, and they're more about getting in and hitting with that headbutt. And they've got some really cool command cards you can use with them. Call the Vanguard's okay, but something like size advantage is something I've been seeing both with the Tauntauns and the speeder bikes, which we'll be talking about shortly. To the Limit, also really good with them. Allows you to take a move action and then use their headbutt special action, and then as a third action you can attack, so that's been quite good. Single Purpose I have not seen, but can be good with them, as well as most other trooper cards. And since they are mounted, they can do good work with Grenadier, but I don't think they're as good with it as the speeder bikes are, since they have that headbutt already to use. Yeah, there's been questions about what to run the Tauntauns with because there's no other creatures in Rebels, but I think they do fine with just trooper synergies, and then playing 2 of them, you have enough to run some creature cards in your deck without having to worry too much. You can also run them with the ATRT. I think this is a card that could be good with them. It's another large base trooper, so you get that size advantage. Plus it's got massive, so you can do some other things. Yeah, but the only issue I've seen so far with the Tauntauns is it seems Useful Hide is very difficult to trigger. The Tauntauns tend to move deep into the opponent's backlines to make use of that headbutt. So then usually when they die, they're kind of by themselves in the opponent's ranks. And so I could see us maybe tweaking the range on Useful Hide a little bit to make it happen, because that's one of the things that makes them unique. I mean, mounted headbutt, it feels very similar to what Dewbacks are doing, but the Useful Hide is what makes them stand out from that, and is inspired by the flavor from the movie, of course. So next, let's talk about speeder bikes. Speeder bikes also have been doing quite well, but not anything super broken. Mounted makes them good with Grenadier. Is a good card to play with them. Yeah, Grenadier. I saw a really cool play where somebody had line ambush with them, and so they dropped them off in their opponent's deployment zone in round 2, and then used Grenadier with them and attacked with both of them, so that was pretty cool. Nothing super powerful though. They did like 2 damage to 2 figures, and then they did like both of them attacked Thrawn and did 7 damage to Thrawn, but didn't kill him, so Yeah, that was cool. I think the speeder bikes are doing really good. I haven't really heard anything that makes me think they need to change. Forward-mounted blasters is not that hard to trigger, honestly, but it is a small enough bonus. Also, I have seen when I've watched people play them, they have to move them a lot of more extra spaces than they probably would normally to get that extra forward-mounted blasters. So that has been fun to see. Let's see, who have we not talked about yet? Cross training has actually been MIA. I don't think I've seen a game log with it from what my notes show me. But it seems like it would be good with riot troopers for sure. So hopefully we'll see some game logs come in for that. I've only seen a couple of games with Rogue One. I did forget to talk about this in my preview videos. I'm sorry about that. We do have a Rogue One skirmish upgrade for these 6 figures, and if you run all 6 of them, you can include this card, and you still have 10 points left over. But you cannot play any unique figures that cost 3 or less. So no R2D2, no C3PO, no Gideon. But you can still run generic, so you can run Alliance Smugglers with this list. I think, yeah, I'm trying to take this card in a slightly different direction for 10.1. Just need to convince the other steering committee members because it just hasn't really been doing much. The 1VP is nice, it offsets things. The power token sharing is nice, but what I've heard is it actually makes games very complicated, complex, trying to figure out who has access to tokens from who else and where the spacing is. So this is probably going to get an update in 10.1 once we kind of figure out how we want to do this, and I've got some ideas for how this can interact better with the rest of the game and the season, but we'll see how that goes with 10.1. So far, I think, who have I seen this? I've seen it played with Mara Jade and Rebel High Command to get the command card draw, and then Mara Jade, of course, can play all of the unique command cards from all of these characters, except for Cassian, which is nice. Let's see. I think that's it. Oh, we just have some command cards. So, Close the Gap. This card has been pretty strong, but it is a very spread out effect. It's not like with other 3-point command cards like On the Lam or Assassinate, where it's like this one big thing happens. It's more like you've got all these figures that get to move up closer and get a little bit more of a defense bonus. And it makes attacking much easier with those figures, but it's not like, oh wow, this huge thing happened. So I think Close the Gap is actually pretty good. I've heard people saying it's really strong from how they're feeling about it, but so far I think this card is in a pretty good place. I'll have to see more of it and see if it's like way stronger than I'm really thinking it is. If you really look at the numbers, it does do a lot. Like I've seen it give 8 movement points and 4 block tokens. That range 4 requirement for the block tokens is not that far, especially on some of the like the new map like Endor Defense Station. It's not that difficult to get to 4 spaces from 2 movement to get the extra block token, but it's like little bonuses that add up to a lot with this card. We talked about Capitalize, Overheated. Smoke Grenade I have not seen yet, so hopefully people will try it out. I thought I saw it for a second, and then I realized it was actually a Claudite using its soldier form to put down a shield token, or an energy shield. So I think this card is a little bit underrated right now. It's basically half of an action to put down a energy shield that cannot be destroyed for 2 rounds. I think this card's being slept on a little bit, and it shouldn't be hard to play because it's a trooper card. And then Take Position. This card's been pretty good. I've seen it, I think I've mostly just seen it used with Boba Fett to really boost his defenses. So this plus 2 block tokens, he's getting like plus 3 blocks and plus 1 evade, which is pretty good. But I will say I actually played against it, and I actually didn't have that much trouble breaking through those defenses with Rebel Brawlers. So I think it's good with him. I think it is a bit concerning if we ever see it combined with Fuel Upgrade to give that other plus 1 evade that combines. You can also easily stack those, and you can excavate this card as well as fuel upgrade, but not quite as strong as fuel upgrade since it doesn't give the speed bonus. I have not seen the push come up, but I'm sure it will eventually come up. The thing I am concerned about with this card, though, is the double ATST list that Herbie recently debuted. I'm thinking that, like, we could accidentally create a... This card is very similar to Survival Instincts, right? And you've got a 2-block massive figure, so yeah, I am worried about that, but so far seems like it's been okay. Definitely monitoring this one with other defensive cards and things like Gar Saxon, who can kind of do a Boba Fett impression with a block token. On him, you could get +2 block, +1 evade for each block token, although that bonus runs out pretty quickly. So yeah, that is Season 10. That's what's been going on. I might post another video with like highlights from the games I found, but that takes a little more time, and I wanted to get this out before the updates went out next week. And I do have to go now. Thank you everybody for watching, and I hope to see you playtesting in Season 10. I might do some game log reviews if I have time, but we'll see you next week, and we'll be announcing the 10.1 updates for July 29th.